So, hi and welcome to another live video, a live gaming stream video. And today's video is a bit of an expansion on a short that I did a couple of days ago. And recent news is that the Nintendo Switch has sold 139.36 million units, making it well, in the short, I said that it was the second best-selling console of all time, and that's true, kind of, but not quite true. So it's the second best-selling home console of all time, but if you're taking all consoles in, then it slips to the third position. So 139.36 million sales is a huge. It's a huge number. And this console has only been out since about 2017, so it is great. It's overtaken the Wii, and it's overtaken lots of other consoles. And okay, so we are now into the seventh year, the possibility of the Switch 2 coming out, and I don't see sales dropping dramatically. So there is a big chance that it could become the biggest selling console of all time, and that title has been held by the PlayStation 2, which absolutely phenomenal console, came out sort of 1999 2000, and that's got a figure of, hang on, I've got some notes, of 158 million units, and that figure is correct as of May 2023, so there's a possibility that's gone up already. So 158 million units for the PlayStation 2 makes it the biggest selling console of all time. And if we are looking at home consoles, then the Switch is next at 139.36. But I put out a short, little tiny 60-second sort of news snippet. And one of the comments was, well, actually, that's not entirely true, because I said that the Switch was the second best-selling console of all time. And somebody quite rightly pointed out that the Nintendo DS takes that reign. And we're talking about the DS range here. So this is the original DS, the DS Lite, the DSi, and the DSi XL. I wasn't sure whether the 3DS was included in those figures, but it appears not. And that stands at 154 million units sold. Interestingly, 93 million of those was the DS Lite. So at 154 million, it puts the DS range in second place. So you've got the PS2 being the biggest selling console of all time, and then you've got the DS at the second best selling console of all time, which puts the Switch into the third position. So it depends on how you read it. If we're talking about home consoles, then PS2, then Switch. But if you're talking about consoles altogether, then it's PS2, DS, and Switch. And just out of a little bit of interest, I had a look at a few more of them. So you've got the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color coming in fourth place at 118 million, and then you've got the PS4 in the fifth spot, coming in at 117 million. So it's interesting to know that the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color has outsold the PlayStation 4, but you've got to think the Game Boy was released in 1989, the Game Boy Color in 1998. It's only just pipped the console, the PS4 console, which was released in 2013. So there you go. 5 best-selling consoles of any platform, so handheld or home, is PS4. Then it's the Game Boy range. Then it's the DS range. And then it's the Switch, and then it's the PS2. And so if we look at this, so 158 million for the PS2, 139. Yeah, I'm trying to work out that out. It's going to be 148. Oh, my maths is not great at this time in the morning. So 139, 140. So you're talking about 19 million, I think. The Switch needs to sell 19 million for it to take over the spot of the PlayStation 2, and it is entirely possible. The Switch isn't finished yet. It might be 7 years in, it might be slowing down in terms of sales, and it might. I mean, even with the Switch 2 due to be released in this year, it doesn't mean the Switch sales are going to stop altogether. We've got at least another 6 months of Switch before the Switch 2 hits, and then even then, Nintendo will probably discount some of the Switch hardware. They'll still be making regular Switch games for at least another 2 or 3 years. So there is a huge possibility, very easily, that the Switch could outsell the PlayStation 2, because I'm sure this 158 million figure from the PlayStation 2 is trickling along. I mean, there's no new sales, so actually, that it's probably stopped altogether. So 158 million new units, let's go with new units, means that there hasn't been any new sales, so it's not really gonna snowball any further. The Switch, on the other hand, is still a current console. It's still selling new units, albeit at a slower pace. But there's easily, I've got no doubt that the Switch could quite easily just sell these extra 18 million units and become the biggest selling console of all time. It's a little bit of a shame, because the PS2 is fantastic, and obviously the 3, the 4, and the 5 have yet to overtake its reign as the biggest selling console. But it's going to happen, and I think the Switch is going to be the one to do it. The Wii was close. It really sort of zoomed in, but I think that only came in at about 101 or 104 million. So 139 million. It's very, very possible that the Nintendo Switch, and I say the Switch, so that includes the Switch, the revised Switch, the OLED Switch, the Switch Lite, and if by any chance Nintendo make another revision of the first gen Switch, that it could very easily become the biggest selling console of all time. So I just wanted to be a bit more clear on that, because, like I said, I made a short about this subject, and then somebody chipped in and said, well, actually, no, the DS is the second best selling console of all time. And yes, it is. And it's a little bit odd with the Switch, because the Switch is a hybrid console, so it falls into that home and portable console, whereas the PS2 is a home console. The DS is a dedicated handheld console. So it would make sense really to include the DS in that sort of list. And like I said, it goes currently PS2, DS, Switch, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and then PS4. And then there's a huge, great list of best-selling consoles and worst-selling consoles. Things like the Dreamcast at 9 million, I think it was. The Wii U at 13 million. The GameCube, I think, was only about 14 million. So there are huge sellers, and then there's tiny sellers. But the point of this video is just an update and a bit of a clarification that, as it currently stands, it goes Switch. Nope, it goes PS2, DS, Switch. If you're being sort of finicky about it and you're just talking about home consoles, it then does go PS2 and Switch. And there is every chance, and that in the next year, 18 months, 2 years possibly, that the Switch is going to overtake the PlayStation 2 at 158 million to become the biggest selling games console of all time. And I don't think anything else is going to touch that. I don't even think the Switch 2, if it comes out and it's an all new platform and they don't include that in the sales figures, then the Switch 2 is going to struggle to match that, because the Switch really was quite an innovative and different console, and I think the Switch 2 is just going to be more of a continuation, a bit like the Wii U to the Wii or the 3DS to the DS. It's the Switch 2, even if they call it that, is going to be just an extension, a continuation, and as long as it maintains backward compatibility, I think we could see a bit more Switch sales. But if you're when they bring the Switch 2 out, it's going to be the newest, the biggest, the most expensive, and I think Nintendo could make quite a bit of inroads by discounting the current Switch range, thus pushing sales of that platform even further, which means it could easily make 158 million and become the biggest selling games console of all time. So that's it. That's me wrapping this video up, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I just wanted to clarify that a little bit further from my earlier short. Like, subscribe, enjoy.